our need for that room over there is the other nothing. I don't get it. If everybody will send an email to the yeshiva saying that it's not right to do that, maybe it'll help.
I sent 3.
Everybody has it?
Yeah, it's on.
Put in the sheet.
Also, tell me when wrong there. Yep.
I've heard you say that.
What's your boss? Good morning. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Today's share is sponsored by the Honig family, Zecher Nishmas Azriel ben Ari HaKohen, and Shama shall have an Aliyah. I think today's topic is a very relevant topic for everybody in this room. Whether you're somebody who's planning on making a Siyum sometime soon, which Baruch Hashem looks like there are some people there, or even if you're not planning on making a Siyum, but one could attend Siyumim. And today's share, we hope to give guidelines, halakhic guidelines, for this process of a Siyum. The real impetus for this share, a month from today, is scheduled. The Agudas Yisrael of America organizes a big Siyum here in America for Daf Yomi Siyum HaShas. And as they did last time, but now beyond that, last time they rented out the biggest stadium in the tri-state area, the MetLife Stadium. It's a football stadium with all the seats that they have actually on the field. You can sit on the 50-yard line. They accommodate inside the stadium 90,000 people. Wow. 7.5 years ago, in fact, I was there. They're pretty good seats. They had 90,000 people.
The weather was better.
It was in the middle of the summer. Actually, it was raining the entire day. And literally, moments before the Siyum began, it stopped raining. Obviously, divine hashkacha. It was a beautiful sunset. Everyone remembers by that stadium. Amazing. One guy in a Jets jersey. Won't forget that either. This time around, Aguda now has rented out 2 venues. MetLife Stadium, as well as in Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn, the Barclays Center. So together, these 2 venues, Aguda is expecting live participation at the site of the Siyum, well beyond 100,000 people. 100,000 Jewish people to come together to celebrate the milestone of Siyum HaShas, of Daf Yomi, but really celebrating Torah learning in general. An amazing event. I actually know of some people in this room who are flying out to the Siyum to be there. It is a big event. People are flying in from all over the country to be there. We'll talk in this neighborhood, in Florida, in South Florida. There's 2 events. There's one on January 1st in Boca, one on the following Sunday at Signature Grand. So Baruch Hashem, there's a lot of ways to connect with this amazing Siyum. Similarly, just a month later from that, in February, the Deer Shoe organization. Deer Shoe is an organization, some people know them famously for their Mishnah Berurah. But Deer Shoe is an organization that started over 10 years ago, which helps promote Limud HaTorah. And they do a lot of wonderful things. One of the things they do is they offer tests with monetary incentives on all aspects of learning. Tests on Gemara. So someone learning Daf Yomi, to master the material, there are tests that one could take. They have a program to encourage people daily learning in halacha, Mishnah Berurah. And also they have tests. I was talking to one of my friends, he said, Baruch Hashem, he made some good money off constantly taking tests. And their idea is to promote Limud HaTorah. So they're also having a gathering to commemorate all that's going on in the Torah learning in the Jewish world. They're up to their third venue already. They're granted not as big as the Daf Yomi Siyum, but they already rented out 3 different places in Newark, New Jersey. There's the Hockey Prudential Center. There's 2 other spots, actually, convention halls, an performance art center, all right over there in walking distance in Newark, New Jersey. They're going to have 3 different venues for their event. So what you see is, Baruch Hashem, there are so many Jews all over the world, especially a lot over here in America, who've gotten involved in daily learning programs. And really what we'll see, part of these big, grandiose, major Siyums, bringing in the biggest speakers and performances. Really, the purpose of making such a grand Siyum is to encourage other people to join along, come along for the ride. And that itself is amazing, amazing means to spread Torah. When you see everyone coming together, when you see how much it's honored, till now, who's on the field, the gridiron heroes. But people come together and Limud HaTorah, who's going to be on the field, will be Moshe Mashiach, will be the Rabbanim, the Gedolim. They're going to be sitting there on the field just a few days before, playing football there. Maybe not by that time of the season. And then you have Gedolim sitting there on the field, an amazing sight to see. And it encourages a lot of people, whatever they can, to get involved in consistent daily learning. So what we want to do in today's share is analyze different aspects of the Siyum, understand the Siyum, and this way, for sure if we participate, but so too, perhaps we'll be inspired to start some small daily learning experience, and this way, work your way to having a Siyum. And I really found so much on this topic of a Siyum. Like many topics, I could break it into multiple shiurim. Just Friday night, one of my dear neighbors, I told him he has a good library. So I asked if he had this certain sefer about Siyums. He had it. This entire sefer is all about the inyan of having a Siyum. Going through many different things in halacha. I have multiple other svarim I went through. All talk about the concept. Now, the basis of having a Siyum and celebrating Limud HaTorah when one completes something is based on a Gemara in Shabbos. It's on top of your sheets. Gemara in Shabbos is Kuf Yud Ches Amud Beis. Amar Abaye. Teisili Dechizazina Shiburnu Merbanan. When I see a Talmid Chacham, the Shalom Masechta, who finished a Masechta of Gemara, Avdina Yom HaTuv L'Rabbanan. So I'll make a whole celebration, literally a yontif, for the rabbis. Abaye, the Gemara tells us, this is the great, Rav and Abaye, when he saw, Rashi explains, Abaye himself was a Rosh Yeshiva, he had his own yeshiva, and when he saw students, Talmidim, who finished the Masechta, he would make a party for them. It's interesting. So the first thing you see straight from the Gemara is the concept of celebrating a Siyum. You also see that the person setting up the Siyum is an admirer, is somebody else. Abaye admired the fact that his students completed something, so thus he made a party for them. There's an Inyan, there's a concept that one should celebrate in a wonderful fashion called a yontiv. When someone completes something, it's a big achievement, and it should be focused on, lauded, praised. The Maharsha over here makes another point, which is amazing. It's mashma from this Gemara that he didn't just make, you finished Masechta, so I'll take you out to grill time. I'll take you out to a nice fancy restaurant. It's not a singular celebration. It's mashma from this Gemara that the celebration was Avdini Yom Tova L'Rabbanan. When he saw one individual Talmud complete and make an accomplishment of a Siyum, he made a party, a celebration for everybody. Everybody's joining in. Everyone's a part of the Siyum. What's the reasoning for that? So the Maharsha on this Gemara, it's about the third line. He says, Avdina Yom Tova L'Chor Rabbanim. Abaye made a party, a celebration for all the students. Ki'ilu Chazinin Dekulu Lamdu Bishleimos At Siyuma. As if they all learned this topic, this Masechta, till the end. One guy made the Siyum, but the celebration is for everybody in the yeshiva, everybody in the Beis Medrash. Why? Maharsha says, because it's ki'ilu, it's as if everyone finished. Now we know we should be in good company, people who make a Siyum, right? Baruch Hashem, if there are people in this room who make a Siyum, it's everyone's celebration. Now, I don't want to get everyone nervous, I have to invite everybody to the Siyum. We'll talk about that. But the Maharsha is telling us when one person in the Beis Medrash, one person in yeshiva makes a Siyum, it's a celebration for everybody. It's as if everybody did it. That's the reasoning behind it. Abaye made a party for everyone because everyone has a chiluk in it. Everyone's connected with that Siyum. How do you explain that? One guy finished. What does it have to do with everybody else? So I heard from my Rebbe, Reb Henoch Leibowitz, that he said the pshat is because people don't operate in a vacuum. For someone to complete something, to go through a Masechta, learning is hard. And you need encouragement. Sometimes you need verbal encouragement, but many times all that you need is doesn't have to be verbal. You have other people around you learning. When you go to an event and you see somebody else, he's also learning Daf Yomi. He's also part of a shir. That's mechazik, that gives strength to each other. And Reb Henoch said, that's pshat, why everyone has a chiluk in a Siyum. Because everyone gives moral support to the people around them when they learn. And therefore their success, in part, is your success. And therefore you deserve to be there too. Amazing idea. Right? Perhaps, this is in terms of the learning. Right? Maybe they shouldn't just have Siyums in MetLife Stadium. Maybe we should have learning events there. I think Citi Field, they have something there. But, Lamaisa, when people learn together, here in the big Beis Medrash in Bnei Brak, everyone encourages each other. The crowd, the ruach, the spirit. And therefore everyone has some chiluk, some part in his accomplishment. Now this idea of the Gemara and the Maharsha is codified, the halacha, by the Maharshal. Maharshal in the Sefer Yam Shel Shlomo, at the end of Parak Meruba, the 7th Parak, in Baba Kama, brings down this Gemara. It's the second Maramachim in your sheets. On the third line he writes, Mikan, from this Gemara in Shabbos, Nogu Kol Yisrael, it's a minog in all of Judaism, L'sayim b'shmaitza, to make a siyum when they finish their learning, V'litun shevach v'odah l'makom. Part of the Siyum is a Thanksgiving feast. You're giving praise to Hashem that you were able to complete this. U'farsim also simcha. We're getting close to Hanukkah. There's an idea that you should make a Siyum in a broad fashion. You should be mafarsim it. Put an ad in the newspaper. I'm making a Siyum. Just like there's a concept by Hanukkah, Persume Nisa, you're supposed to spread the nace. When someone has an accomplishment, now we know there's also humility is a big Indian in Judaism, right? Anava is a very important midah. But it seems from this marshal, the reason to spread it, the reason to be mafarsim it, is because of the fact it will encourage others to do the same. So when a person makes a siyum, the marshal is telling us, well, farsim also simcha. You should spread that simcha. You were fortunate to achieve this. And therefore you should make a su'uda, make a meal at the time you're finishing. That's what the marshal writes. He says a little bit later, even someone who didn't finish the Masechta, based on all this Gemara, mitzvah rabba, sheyismach Messiah. It's a big mitzvah to be involved with the one who finishes it. Finishing itself, we celebrate. He goes through other Gemaras. When a person would finish a mitzvah, that itself is a cause of a celebration. Right? You know, imagine people, I think people feel the simcha by the mitzvah Sfiras Omer. Right? So, people sometimes miss the count today. This. Imagine you have a year, thumbs up. Every single night you counted. At the end of Sfiras Omer, you feel good. Wow, what an accomplishment. I actually made all 49 nights. It was great. There's a certain simcha you have when you finish a mitzvah. Well, even the Masechta has less than 49 blot, and it took you less than 49 days in the Daf Yomi cycle. But you know what? That's an accomplishment. That's something. And there's a certain simcha that a person has. If you have it by a regular mitzvah, it's a kal v'chomer by the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, which is the greatest of mitzvahs. So it's a tremendous simcha for the person who accomplishes the siyum, but it's also a big mitzvah for anyone who comes to it too. Right? You have the chance to go to a siyum, it's a big deal. I saw one of my svarim that I had multiple questions that they asked of Chaim Kanievsky about siyums. So one of the questions they asked was, if a person has a choice one night, can only make one event, he either go to a bar mitzvah or a siyum. Which one should he go to? So Rav Chaim Kanievsky said, flip a coin. Go to either of the two, because they're really the same concept, the same inyan. It's celebrating Torah. I guess one's on the front end of the Torah, one's on the back end. One you're starting, one you're finishing. But it's a celebration of Torah. A wonderful thing. And someone who has the ability to go to a siyum, a wonderful, wonderful event. I have a feeling after today's share, some people might be inspired. Who knows, by next week, we can have siyums right here. Now, so that's the basic makaros, the basic sources for celebrating the siyum. It's the Gemara in Shabbos and the Yam Shel Shlomo over here at the end of Baba Kama, 7th parak. Now, if you think about it, where is a siyum very prominent in our, I guess, cycle of life? So there's three, I think, areas people have siyums, other than, yeshiva bakrim or individuals who are learning through something. Three major points people make siyums. Number one is Erev Pesach. Right? We know that in Erev Pesach there's a chiyuv to fast if you're a bechor. I know that quite well. And one way which is commonly done to override it is by making a siyum. The understanding is really it should be a fast day. There's an inyan to fast for a Bechor. Otherwise, there would have been the Bechorim were passed over on the Yom Tov of Pesach. And by making a Siyum, one exempts oneself. There's so much simcha, there's so much enjoyment, happiness of the fact that they finished something that exempts one from fasting. You similarly have that concept by a Yortzeit. Really, it's brought down in halacha that the day that one's parents passed away, there's a concept of fasting that day. And there are many, I know of people that the day of a parent's Yortzeit, they actually fast. Now, Hasidic circles and spread all over, right? There's an idea of tikkun, right? All you have to do is bring in some schnapps and some kichel, cake. You're all good, right? Tikkun. But really, you should go, these halachas, right? There's an inyan of fasting on by a Yortzeit. But again, there too you find people that will dafka make a siyum on the Yortzeit. That itself obviously is a tremendous schus for the nifter if you're doing a siyum, a zecher nishmas them. But with that, the fact that you're making a siyum, it's a day of simcha for you in that sense. So that also would exempt one from fasting. So that's another area, siyum b'chorim and a Yortzeit.
Concept specifically for the first year to make a siyum because it's the first day that you can have a big party.
Very interesting point. You're right. Some people do it specifically the first year because as you finish, right, that's the first time you could go to that. This ties me into last week's share, right? We talked about, different social engagements to go to, right? Not so simple during the year of one's in mourning, the 12 months for a parent, to go to a siyum, to go to a suda, sudas Mareas, a friendly suda. Yeah, not so simple. Now, there's one other area where siyum come up in the normal cycle. That's during the 9 days. In the Ashkenazic world, where one has to refrain from eating meat for a whole 9 days. It's not really 9 days because you have Shabbos in between. But the big deal, there's no meat. So one way, I don't want to use the words around it, is if a person makes a siyum. Now we'll see. This area sometimes is quite overdone, and we'll see. I remember as a kid, back in Brooklyn, there was a restaurant that was advertising, we're open during the 9 days, every night is siyum. Boy, oh boy, they know how to get trouble business. They hire a guy to make a siyum each day, and the restaurant's packed, right? Yeah, he says the big restaurants have multiple siyums going on a night. The early crowd, the late crowd. Yeah, they serve Rizzono's rolls too. I'll tell you what else they have over there. But okay, so if you look in the middle of your sheets, I brought down the Shulchan Aruch. This is in Hilchos Avelos, Siman Tov Kuf Nun Aleph. The Shulchan Aruch writes, "Uvesudas mitzvah kigon mila upidyon haben v'siyum mesachta v'sudas erisin a sudas mitzvah a bris pidyon haben a wedding or a siyum ochel basar v'shosam yahin one can eat meat and drink wine asher chanim v'suda aval yishat sam sheshlo hosef yeah. One could do this even during the 9 days, the Ramah writes. But the Mishnah Berurah cautions us with a few things. If you look at the Mishnah Berurah, he writes, Makom Makom. If it's really, you're not like on track to make a siyum. Don't try to speed up, or don't try to delay. You really could have made a siyum in June. But you know what? I'm going to hold in my back pocket. Come the 9 days, I'm going to be the biggest boss in camp. Everyone's going to be so, wow, you're the guy who lets all eat meat. Shh, I'll be the toast of the town. So the Mishnah Berurah is saying you can't do that. It has to be that you're really actually finishing it during the 9 days. On top of that, he also writes, Efshar sheyasenu gamata. That's a big line. If you're the guy, when you make a siyum, you pull out a bag of potato chips and a few, Oreo, maybe a Strudel cookie or two. That's your normal siyum. Oh, but when you do it in the summer, somehow the camp is pulling out steaks for the whole, place. You don't normally make such a suda. Now because of the 9 days, now you're going to celebrate even better? Chavetz Chaim says, that's a no-no. You got to be consistent. Achein, in this damin karai, if this is the normal pace, this is where you're up to. Mutarin lecho af osa shalom de'imayim. It'll be mutter for you to eat by a siyum, not just you, but also friends with you. Im hayahochin boim gam b'zman achem mishum reis. If they're the type of friends who normally would come otherwise to your siyum. Now,
does he feel similarly about Erev Pesach?
Yeah,
good point.
how do they get out of Pesach?
I'm not going to ask you about the yard sale, but
Yeah.
about Erev Pesach.
So, I assume what people are bringing up, I assume is the last line of the Mishnah Berurah. Who really is part of the siyum? Who really gets in? And I've heard over the years in different camps, every camp, Baruch Hashem, every nice Jewish camp usually has or the Asra, a Rav, a Posek, who's in charge of that camp. And the different camps that do have different policies. But for example, in camps, they are a matter that if one person in the camp makes a siyum, they usually would allow everybody in the camp to join in. They're a part of it. And certainly, let's say in a shul, same type of scenario. Let's say, one person in a shul makes a siyum. So yeah, everybody in the shul could participate in that. Because they're all part of a shul. The concept of being part of a shul, this is something we always rant about every so often. Baruch Hashem, in this community, I think for the most part, right? People are parts of shuls and they'll daven, in places they're accustomed to. In some, communities, they have what you call minion factories, which literally you could daven in different places. You get the multiple minion factories in the same community. So in those situations, it's a little harder to associate everybody connected with the siyum. You daven there, Erev Pesach, I don't know, not so simple. I remember a few years ago, we had a shiloh, but I thought it worked. We thought it worked. The yeshiva was in Eretz Yisrael for the summer's man. And my young bar mitzvah bacher, my son Mordechai, was learning over the summer. He was in Eretz Yisrael. What else could he do besides go to, hang out with his friends and go to the bakery down the block? They spent some time learning. So Baruch Hashem, he was able to make a siyum. So the question was, could his siyum count for the whole base medrash? For the base medrash to have a fleishik dinner. So I felt Mordechai was my sidekick. He was in yeshiva more than probably some other guys in yeshiva that summer. That's a shvach of my son. So, 100%. His siyum was considered a celebration of the whole yeshiva. Yeshiva's mascot, sure. 100%. But, where exactly you draw the line, it's not so simple. Somebody you really have no connection with, to invite for a siyum and take part in the siyum, it's really not so simple.
When it says don't hurry up or delay, that's the learning, or that's...
Yeah. Ideally, one should learn at a normal pace, and whenever you finish, that's when you make a siyum. That's the ideal. You shouldn't speed up necessarily to get to somewhere. Now, sometimes you have a goal. Let's say your goal is a yahrzeit of somebody. So, people procrastinate. Sometimes you do have to hurry up a little bit to get there. But like all learning, we'll get to that in a moment, talk about that more. It should really be a celebration of the learning itself. So try to get there. I saw one of the Mefarshim explain, why can't one have, by these siyums? What's wrong if you do it during the 9 days, just to have the siyum? So, the Mefarshim explained, because then really what you're doing is not celebrating the Torah, you're celebrating the meat. Right? What are you doing the siyum for? First and foremost, it should be a celebration of Limud Torah. Because I'm celebrating Limud Torah, really the best thing to do for a siyum? First of all, it should be a suda. you should wash, you should sit down. Ideally, a Suda, a Yontif, that's meat, that's wine. Yeah. I remember it was a beautiful thing when we were in Eretz Yisrael. It's actually one of the Talmidim in the yeshiva actually made a siyum on the Masechta we were learning. And we were able to get into Reb Chaim Kanievsky, which is not so easy. But one of the ways that helped us get in, we had to get some protexia, but was, somebody asked, the person who was giving us protexia asked, is anybody in yeshiva making a siyum? So I'm like, oh, there's one guy in yeshiva talking. He's like, great, Reb Chaim loves siyums. So, the Talmud in yeshiva actually sat there and made a siyum by Reb Chaim Kanievsky. Amazing, amazing sight. And we asked him a few shilos about it. In fact, I heard it from my own ears. Some of the stuff I saw printed up was not exactly what we heard from him. By this siyum during the 9 days, he mounted the whole yeshiva to have meat. Also, what happened was we were in Bnei Brak that day. We didn't end up having the actual siyum to that night. But also, Reb Chaim was okay with that. And, there's really an Indian by a siyum to have ideally meat and wine. So he said, for the meat, everybody could have, but the wine, only the Messiah. This is during the 9 days. So that he only allowed the person making the siyum to have the wine, but the meat, he felt that he could be more makel to everyone to be part of. Very interesting. Part of the trick was, Reb Chaim has this famous wine for a siyum. Every year he makes a siyum on Kol Torah Kula for the siyum b'chorim. That's a legitimate siyum. So he usually has wine, and this wine is like, special bracha wine. So we were figuring, we brought with a bottle of wine. Okay, maybe Reb Chaim will, have some wine and make it, special bracha wine. But he wouldn't have any wine. He felt only the Messiah could have, not everybody else. Now, also people sometimes buy a siyum, and depends how much they set up for, what the spread is. So especially this comes up by a siyum b'chorim, right? If you're a b'chor, that means first and foremost you have to participate in the siyum. Pashup shad, for you to be exempt from fasting that day, you have to be there live at the siyum. People post can talk about hearing one Torah anytime. That doesn't really work. You have to be there live, right? Live stream too. I don't think that works. Sorry. But you have to be there as part of the siyum, celebrating together. You also, HaShas, we'll see, have to eat. In fact, on the back of your sheets, I have here Moshe Sternbach in the first volume of his HaShas Teshuvos, brings from the Rivos Ephraim. Just spoke about him in Yeshiva the other day. Ephraim Greenblatt, Zatzal, Chashav Posek, Talmud of Moshe. Actually learned the Chafetz Chaim way back when. And he holds that just being at a siyum, even if one didn't eat, that would exempt one from a siyum. And he would say, if you at a siyum, then you could go home later and eat. But Rav Sternbach is of the opinion not so. That the only way to be considered part of the siyum is not just to be there for the siyum, but you also have to eat something. Rav Sternbach actually, in the earlier piece here, gives a share. He says you have to eat. It's got to be more than a kazayas, maybe a little bit less than a kabeya, or drink mali lugma of yain. You have to actually have something somewhat substantial. And sometimes you have these siyums, everybody who's in the shul comes and eat, and the guy who's, some guy who's bachar didn't get anything. That's a pashut. Tricky situation. Yes?
Isn't that the same by a chasana, that the chasan has to be because of the Suda?
Okay,
I read a tshuva recently where he was having stomach problems or something, and he kind of ducked out, and there was a question whether he could say shavuot brachos.
Interesting, right? You're bringing up the halachos of shavuot brachos, and for the participants to eat and be involved, yeah.
The main head guy has to
Yeah, you always have to know how much you have to eat. Judaism is about eating, but it's not just about eating. It's also how much do I have to eat? How quick do I have to eat? Everything has halachos. So these are basic concepts of, okay, if I want to participate in the siyum. Now these are the siyums, which probably one is most medactic in, right? If you're having a siyum to exempt one from fasting, by yurtzeit or by siyum b'chorim, you better make sure that siyum is a correct siyum. And your participation has to be full participation. You got to be there. You can't just walk in. Sometimes you have people walk in right after the siyum's finished. Not so simple, right? I'm here for the food. You missed the first part, right? Huadin, people should try ideally to eat by the siyum, to have something by the siyum. This way, also, that's part of joining. And once someone eats by the siyum, then they could eat the rest of the day. I saw someone critique that in camp sometimes one guy makes a siyum, and all the other guys, I'm not having camp food. We're going out and having a barbecue. Then you can't have fleishiks. You have to participate at the suda of the siyum. You can't just, I'm going to take the siyum, and that's a carte blanche heter for me to go make a barbecue, go out to Dougie's in Woodburn. No, that's not how it works. The heter is from the suda that you're having. That's where it's at. Now, what qualifies for a siyum? This is a very important topic. What qualifies for a siyum? So, found multiple versions talk about, let's start with chumash. If a person goes through the entire chumash with a parish, right? Now, in general, we make a siyum on Simchas Torah. That's a general siyum of the Jewish world. That's really the biggest Jewish learning event of the year, the Simchas Torah. That everyone goes through all the parshios. That is a siyum, really, even if ideally, one should do Shnayim Mikra, but it's a siyum just in general of Torah. But a person himself, let's say one goes through the entire Chumash with Ramban, or Sforno, goes through with the Chash of a Parish, so one can make a siyum on that, Paul's can bring down, that qualifies as a siyum. Let's say somebody likes Nach. If one goes through a Sefer of Nach, but learned with the Parish, if one goes through Nach with the Parish, one could make a siyum on that. You go through Sefer Yoshua well with the Parish, that's something to celebrate. You can make a siyum on that. Mishnayos. So here there's debates, but for the most part what's accepted is in order to make a real siyum. Now sometimes by schools, you have a kid, the yeshiva finishes Masechah Sukkah, right? And your class finishes Sukkah and your Rebbe takes you out. It's a nice thing, but it's not a real siyum, right? They finish a parak in Gemara, so the guy said, Rebbe, we gotta go out for a siyum. Okay, you want to go out to eat, kol kavod, but that's not obviously a real siyum. A real siyum for Mishnayos does need to be one full seder. And we'll see the nafkaminas that comes up. People like making a siyum for a shloshim, for a yurtzeit. So ideally, what one should do is try to get enough people to have, or do enough, to finish one seder. Whether it's Moed, Nashim, Nezikim, one full of the Sisha Sidrei Mishnah, one full column of Mishnayos, of multiple Masechtas, that qualifies as Siyum Mishnayos. Gemara, any Masechta, including there are quite a few shorter Masechtas out there, those also qualify. You learn through the Gemara, again, pashtas with a parish, with understanding, and one could make a siyum on that Masechta. So these are all formal ways to make a siyum. What has popped up, now in general, it actually comes up for Mishnayos a lot, is that one person doesn't make a siyum. You have what you call these joint siyums. What do we say about joint siyums? Does that count? Because if you go through it, no one person, let's go by Mishnayos, right? You classically have in the house of an oval, you'll have a Mishnayos sign-up sheet. Nowadays it's online. Everything's digital. And you click on Yeah, no one person usually did one Seder. Usually you have multiple people pieced together, piecemeal. You have the Seder. You could have the whole Shisha Seder Mishnah. So does that work? Now, I'll first say, first and foremost, that concept of people joining together, each doing a Masechta for a Yortzeit, for a Suda, that has been going on in the Jewish world. I don't know how long, but definitely a while. You go back to Europe, there's HaShas, yeah, people pitched in, joined together. Nowadays, it's blowing up even more and more. You have places that will make, we have 500 kids, 500 people in this room. Okay, everyone's going to take a daf, and we're going to have a Shasathon. We're going to finish Shas today. Today we're going to finish Shas. Just so one institution was proud of the fact we went through entire Shisha Sidrei Mishnah in less than an hour. Oh wow. Right? Everyone will take a couple of Mishnais, boom. They might make a lavish dinner. Halachically, this is not so pashut. That may not be a siyum. What I think particularly is tricky is you're downgrading the whole accomplishment of what a siyum is. You're celebrating something which is a little bit fake. In fact, I found at the bottom of the sheets, Rabbi Yoshev in the Sefer Ashrei Ish, he writes, Kama noshim v'masayim b'yachat shas, al yidei chalukas hamasechtos, ben kol lomdim, ein ze siyam HaShas. The siyam hu she'adam echad gomer es kol masechto HaShas. You know what you need for a siyam? One person to have that accomplishment. That's what a siyam is. What these joint things is, Rabbi Yosef said, it's not a siyam. And practically speaking, right? I spoke this over with one of the posik. I asked, what's pshat? People are constantly doing these joint things, even for yortzites or shloshim. So he said, look, for a yortzeit and the shloshim, the same thing. Rebbe wants to take out his class because they finished a parak. So they go out to the restaurant. What's wrong with that? Okay, that may not be the ideal of a siyam, but it happens if they say a kaddish. Yeah. He says the real area where it's tricky is by a siyum b'chorim, let's say, or during the 9 days. You will not find in the Estaiti poskim that will allow a joint siyum for a siyum b'chorim. If you're going to make a siyum b'chorim, it's got to be one person with a real accomplishment. If you're going to make a siyum to eat in the 9 days, it's the most dangerous thing in the world. You get everybody in camp. Everyone will learn one block Gemara. Okay, every night you could be having, sudas for siyums, 3 times a day, eating fleishiks during 9 days. Because everyone learns, one little piece of Gemara, and everyone together, that's a siyum. That's silly. That's not a siyum.
So the restaurant's out.
The restaurants, forget it all. I thought the restaurants were long gone. Yeah. The restaurants, the reason why restaurants are bad, because you have no shaykhus to that restaurant.
I meant the one that advertises.
Yeah, you have no shaykhus to the person making the siyum. You're just a paying customer. I go to this restaurant every Sunday night. Shkach, does that guy come every Sunday night? Is he your friend? Would he invite you to a siyum? So the restaurants, for sure. But the concept of a joint siyum is becoming more and more popular. But in terms of what a siyum is, that's not a siyum. It's important, Judaism doesn't get watered down, too much.
So this concept with Mishnayos,
Yeah.
the joint Mishnayos, is it in any way similar to Sefer Tehillim for Refuah?
Interesting. It's a very good question you bring up. You bring up Sefer Tehillim for Refuah. I actually brought that up with the posik too. You have people that, Baruch Hashem, it's a wonderful thing that people do this as a schus for someone who's sick. People divide up Sefer Tehillim to say on their behalf. And there are WhatsApp groups and, online forums. Everyone can sign up and do it. So I asked, wouldn't it be better for one person to go through, especially if you're doing it for someone who's sick, let's say over a month. Wouldn't it be better for one person to go through over a month? You could go through the whole Sefer. So wouldn't it be better for you to go through the whole Sefer for a month versus you going through the same 10 prakim every night for a month? Because that way, it's your legitimate siyum. You went through the whole Sefer. So the posuk told me, you're right, but practically this is a way to do it, and people may not do it otherwise. So this is a way of arranging it. But in terms of a siyum, the real siyum, let's not get confused with the fluff. The real siyum is a one person going through something and completing it. These joint things are wonderful things, and I believe the siyum mishnayos for yurtzites has been going on for a while. So that's okay. Hey, look, if one person could do a whole seder that's matov manayim, it's even better. But to think that all these kids finish Shisa Seder Mishnah in less than an hour, that's not really a sin. Yes.
Is there a minimum amount that you have to learn to qualify as a siyum? I can't help but think of Rabbi Shapiro tells a story of a son who learned with his father who completed a daf.
I'll get to that.
Great.
Excellent. The simple concept, and that I'll perhaps talk about that story. The simple concept is, you have to finish a sefer. So you have to finish Chumash, you have to finish a sefer Nach, you have to finish a whole seder of Mishnayos, a whole Masechta of Gemara. That's what you have to do. There might be certain exceptions, but for the most part, that's the normal scene. That's the accomplishment that we're celebrating. Now, I'll tell you this. You're not going to believe me about this I'm about to say, but I have it in print. I bought a sefer last time I was in Eretz Yisrael called V'hayir Einenu. It brings down this story this was set over by the Rosh Yeshiva of the Slobodka Yeshiva of Dov Landau in Bnei Brak, and he was quoting an earlier sefer. There are stories, nowadays, a lot of people, you ask them, you going to the Siyum HaShas. What number Siyum is this? So boy, people have purple hearts, all lined up. This is my 5th Siyum, my 10th Siyum. Oh, I started learning when I was a young little schnook in high school. Oh, boy, I did a lot. Yeah. So this is in print. I can show this to you. The Beit Yosef, right? The Mechaber, the Shulchan Aruch, right? We rely on him, no? Quite reliable. He wrote the Shulchan Aruch. Now, you can imagine what type of mastery of Kol Torah did the Beis Yosef have to write the Shulchan Aruch? Beis Yosef. Well, how many times did he finish Shas? To write the Shulchan Aruch? I'm sure he finished it every single year, or more than that. This, that. I don't know. We start betting on how many times the Beis Yosef went through Shas. I'm sure we'll be blown away the numbers. But it's in print. The Beis Yosef said, and there wasn't else humility. He said it straight. He said, "I've gone through Shas, Baruch Hashem, 3 times. 3 times." What does that mean? That means the way he went through Shas was not at the speed, faster than the speed of light. It wasn't, listening to it on fast forward. He went through it methodically, clearly, understood it. So he went through Shas, the Beis Yosef went through Shas 3 times in his life. I have it in print. I'll show it to you. This actually was said over by the Rosh Yeshiva of Slobodka and Bnei Brak, making a point that people think they could just, whiz through learning. It's not, the goal is not the end game. The goal is not the sin. It's a wonderful motivation. Even during the 9 days, one can motivate oneself. Hey, if I make a siyum, I will be the toast of town. So let me try to learn to make a siyum during the 9 days. That's fine. Aruch HaShulchan says that beferish. But if all your goal is just the end, just like we said before, the goal of a siyum can't be the meat, can't be the suda, and the goal of the learning can't just be the end. How many blocks till I get to the end? The goal has to be the learning itself. And Mamela, over time, as Hashem, with Hashem's help, you'll get there. You'll be able to make a Siyum. Look, the Beis Yosef only finished Shas 3 times. Now, what happens at a Siyum itself? So if you look in the back of your sheets, I put down the Hadran. I actually made sure to find a print where it's pretty small, because really the Hadran is long enough they can fit on one side of the page. A lot of these Gemaras, it's decent print. There's a lot to say in a Hadran. It's a long piece. I didn't copy art scrolls because it's 2 pages. And you get there, there's a debate, different times. When do you make the Siyum? Do you make it before the Suda, after the Suda? Definitely if you make the Siyum before. You finish you give a little speech, you finish the end of the last Gemara, right? Concept, you should do the last Gemara, the last Mishnah. The end of your learning, you should save for the Siyum. Then you learn that, and then you say this Hadran. This Hadran takes quite a bit. I heard a great line from Chaim Kreisworth. He said, why is it that our Chazal made such a long Hadran by a Siyum? He says, I'll tell you why. Especially when one learns Daf Yomi. So you go at a quick pace. So it's possible that by the next day, you've already forgot the Daf before. He says, so what are you going to do the last day? You're making a Siyum. You still remember the Daf. So that's why Chazal put this long Hadran. Because by the time you finish the Hadran, you and everybody in the room forgot the last Daf too.
That's not a joke.
It's not a joke. But actually, you look here,
You
there's...
Siyum on the Hadran because you forgot about it? Is that what you're saying?
You can make a Siyum on a Hadran, right? Some people, their essence is to get to the Hadran. So there's 5 parts to the Hadran. You'll see the first part is, we'll see, you go through this Hadran Malach, whatever Masechta, or you're learning. Then you have this Yehi Ratzon with all that Torah should be your main job in this world, and for Olam Haba. You go through the Papa family. People never forget that part. Then you have the Tefillah of Harivna that one says by Berachas Torah every morning, begging Hashem that your Torah should be sweet by you. Then the 4th paragraph is you give thanks, Modem Anachu Lefanecha, which is actually a tefillah that some say every day after they leave the Beis Medrash. And then finally is you have a Yiratzon, another tefillah that just like I finished this Masechta, this point of learning, so too I shall finish other things. So that's the format of the Hadran. I'll quickly go through. Well, first you say the first part of the Hadran, you say 3 times, right? People sometimes get confused, right? Just the first little part, one says 3 times. Why do you say 3 times? The most basic reason people give is it's a segula that you won't forget it. It fits very well with the Kreisworth's joke. You need all the segulas you can to make sure you don't forget it. Besides segulas, the biggest segula is called Chazara. You should review it. So that's the best way to make sure that you remember. So, but you say 3 times. The other points you have there, everyone asks questions, why do we go through the whole Papa family? Why Papa? So I saw, like this Sefer has like pages and pages darshaning why they go through all the Papas. 2 of the shatim I saw, one is they're lauding this family that Baruch Hashem had generations and people involved in learning, and that's something to magnify, something to focus on. Somebody else said that no, the Papa family is Baruch Hashem a well-to-do family, and they always celebrated Siyums in a grandiose fashion, right? That would mean, I guess, if I go to see HaShas, I'll list all the Rechnitz family, and on and on. Cute. But after that, we have these special tefillos. And when a person finishes learning, so that itself is a tremendous time that Baruch Hashem, you got Siyat Shmaya, you got divine assistance, that you made it to finish it. So it's a great time, it's an appropriate time to daven for more success in learning. Please, Hashem. I remember this vividly. I was by multiple Siyums in yeshiva where my Rebbe, Reb Henoch Leibowitz, was there. And he had this very interesting minhag. I saw it multiple times. That when someone would make a Siyum and recite the Hadran, he would quietly repeat word for word of this Hadran with the person finishing. And I asked him I think, what was Pshat? So he said to us a line that, this is the way they used to do it. People used to actually recite word for word. Very interesting. You don't see that. You look around, only the person making the Siyum that recites this Hadran. But Reb Henoch would repeat quietly, whisper, word for word, together with the person singing. For sure, I hear it by Siyum B'chorim or something like that, where you yourself really need to be part of the Siyum. And especially, I thought it was based on that Maharsha, that when one person makes a Siyum, everyone has a chiluk in it. Everyone has a part of it. So if everyone has a part in it, yeah. So it's also your Siyum. So you should also recite word for word that Hadran. Now let me get to a couple practical things, and then I'll summarize a couple stories. The Siyum HaShas, it's a big Inyan. How big of an Inyan is it? I believe the Gdolim, members of the Moetzes Gdolei Torah, debated, should yeshivas stop regular days of yeshiva, give off, for their students, especially in the New York area, to go to the Siyum. And one of the younger Rosh Yeshivas, present at this meeting, volunteered to look. I plan on giving shir that morning. I'll give you shir. We'll finish shir, I'll say 1 o'clock. And we'll go 1 o'clock. The Siyum's actually called for 1. Okay, so we'll get there late. We'll be part of it, but we won't, give up our morning in yeshiva. So Rav David Feinstein, Shlita, was at the meeting. David Feinstein, anyone knows him, is quite quiet, doesn't talk much. But he spoke up. He's like, no, I think every yeshiva should be going to the Siyum. Every yeshiva in New York, you should shut yeshiva, you should take the Talmidim to go, not after yeshiva, but during yeshiva, because of Kavod Torah. And in fact, I have down here that the Rebbe in Chedushei Alev proves this concept that Kavod Torah is greater than actually Limud Torah. And there are times that the right thing to do is to shut one's Gemara, to go, you're going to celebrate, it's Kavod Torah. Look how many people are involved in the wonderful thing of learning Daf Yomi on a daily basis, day in and day out, snow or sleet, early in the mornings, many people with busy professional schedules. The fact that the Koveitim L'Torah, you have all these Gedolim coming there to celebrate it, it's probably going to be one of the greatest gatherings of Rabbanim, in history. How can you not be a part of that? That's Kavod Torah. 100% for people to go. I'll end with 2 stories, both famous. This one I remember watching this story while I was sitting there at last Siyum HaShas. They played it on the Jumbotron. That's a good instant replay. They showed Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel of the Mir Zatzal, who everyone knows is ravaged with Parkinson's disease. One time he spoke at a Siyum HaShas. He gave a very short speech, but he said it with so much emotion. He says, what are the words you say at the end when you make a Siyum? Hadran Allah. I will return to you. He said those are 2 of the most beautiful words that one ever has when it comes to learning. The connection that a person has to learning, that you feel so connected. I learned this Masechta. It's part of me. This Gemara in me. It never left my side. The connection that a person develops with Hashem, with Torah, with Abayin and Rava, with his Gemara, is such a beautiful connection. It's like a husband parting from his wife. I'll return to you. I'm going to come back. I'm just going for a little bit. Those are the beautiful words that one recites when they make a Siyum. And it's a beautiful expression of the love and connection that Klal Yisrael has with learning. We should all be zocher in our own lives whatever he can. You know, it was mentioned before, you know, Rav Moshe once had a person who never learned Torah, never learned Gemara. And he worked and worked and worked with his son over years, finally completed one block Gemara. Rav Moshe Feinstein Paskin that person could make a siyum after one block. Obviously, it's not the normative. But for that person, it's such an accomplishment, it should be recognized. He should make a siyum after that one block. And unfortunately, that person made the siyum, and the next day he passed away. I remember my friend thundering by the last siyum HaShas. Yesh kona olamo b'sha'achas, yesh kona olamo b'daf achas. You never know what takes for a person to be kona olam haba. That guy, look, he couldn't do a whole masechta, but he was kona his olam haba. HaKadosh Baruch Hu appreciates the effort, the work that one puts in. It doesn't have to be a grandiose kol Torah kula. Whatever one can do, consistent learning on a daily basis, anything is a big, big accomplishment. We should all be zocha to hag the Torah v'yader, to grow in our learning step by step. Thank you very much for listening.